turned 30 during quarantine, so I had like my 30-year crisis. Like, I was like,
New year, new crisis. Let's go.
Yeah, I was like, new crisis. Every 5 years, I guess I get to have a crisis.
She's a singer, songwriter, and producer in the EDM scene. You may know her from her songs Run, Cried the Crawling, These Walls, or The Dark. Please welcome Charmae to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. So just kind of the first question that I wanted to ask, what actually got you into making music, or what was your first experience with music like?
Yeah, well, I've always been like a singer. I knew I was good, but I would hide it from everybody growing up. Like, nobody knew. And I actually didn't decide to go for it until I was 25. I call it my quarter life crisis, because I was just like, you know what, I'm going to put myself out there. I have to try this out. So I remember making like a Craigslist post, and I had some recordings that I had done of myself, and I was like, I straight up don't know what I'm doing, but I like to sing and I love music, so if you have any projects you need anybody for, like, hit me up. And I ended up joining this 12-piece funk band. It was awesome. And through that, I just met... Sorry, my dog's got his squeaky toy. One sec. And through that, I ended up joining other bands. So at one point, I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time, and I was in 3 bands at the same time. And one of them was like an original band that we formed, and it was like a hip-hop jazz fusion thing. And we were all writing our own parts, and it was like we went on tour together, opened for like Rakim and Jurassic 5, awesome. Diggable Planets. Yeah, so hip-hop and like soul jazz stuff was my first intro to music. Then I moved to New York City after our band broke up. Like, we were so cool, just kind of worked out that way. And my best friends out there my 2 best girlfriends own a company called Heartbeats, and they throw like bass shows and book really good artists. And I had always loved electronic music and gone to festivals and stuff, and I always like really wanted to do it, but I didn't know where to start, I guess. And spending that time in New York and just like every weekend going to these shows, eventually meeting all the artists. Sorry, allergy season.
Yeah.
Meeting all the artists. And I just kind of fell into doing top lines, like a lot of the artists that would come through, and I would meet them there. Mm-hmm. And I also went to production school while I was out there. So I started DJing and producing as well, and just got really into it and kind of just switched my whole thing over to electronic music. Totally fell in love with it. So, I love it.
Yeah. So you, and like you said, you kind of started off kind of like 25. All that time before then, was there anything else you were planning on doing or doing in your life, like other interests, other jobs?
I mean, kind of. I tried being a makeup artist. I went to massage school, so I have like a degree in massage that I did nothing with. I mean, I did it for like a year, but I just didn't love it. Yeah. So I was searching for sure. And I had always like deep down known and fantasized, and like I was just obsessed with music always. So I'm just glad I finally just put myself out there and threw myself into it, because like people were more than willing to help me out. Like, it was really cool joining all these bands and stuff. I just learned so much from these like incredible musicians. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there.
Well, and you kind of put this first ad out on Craigslist. You've been in bands, you were networking with people. It seems like you have a very like collaborative way of working with people or of making music. Is there anything that kind of lends you to wanting to make music with other people as opposed to like a solo artist, or like trying to do your own thing?
Yeah, I think in the beginning it was a learning experience more than anything for me. So I was just trying to like absorb everything I could. Yeah. even now, I still feel that way. But I just feel like it's always a learning experience working with somebody else. I would love to get more chances to write lyrics with other people because I've pretty much just written my own lyrics, and I kind of go into my studio cave, and I like there's endless possibilities, and I'm like, I guess this is the one I'm going with, and it's great. But I do kind of wish that I was able to collaborate with more songwriters rather than like just instrument players or producers, and I will. I'm sure I'll get there somehow, some way. But I also kind of weirdly like doing it alone too, though. At the same time, it's very private and personal.
Yeah.
But I think it would be a cool challenge, I guess, to try to co-write some lyrics.
So, is there? I guess there are pros and cons to both, but do you find that you like enjoy either solo or with a group or like collaboratively more? Like, is there one of those two that you kind of prefer when you're making music?
Yeah, I feel like I used to prefer the collaborative way a lot more. That's how I got my foot in the door into electronic music, just collaborating with awesome producers. But now that I'm doing a lot of my own production lately and trying to just do more solo stuff, I'm kind of going to the other side of it lately and kind of just finding who I am and what my own sound is, because I've just done so much like top line writing for other people. So it's been really interesting just kind of honing in on like just being in my studio alone for 6 to 8 hours a day, seeing what happens. I think both of them are important, and so I'm kind of moving into this phase, and then I'm sure in a year or two I'll be back on, into my collaborative phase.
Yeah. And so, what kind of tips or advice would you give to other people, like just early on in their music career, or who want to get their foot in the door, get their name out there, meet other artists, whatever?
I would just say to no matter what. It sounds cliche, but just be yourself and be genuine. Like, don't try to meet certain people to climb some ladder that you think exists, because it's just really obvious, and you don't make genuine connections that way. Like, I don't care who you are. If I think you're a shitty person, I'm not gonna kiss your ass or whatever. Just being yourself, and it's okay to network and be genuine. It's like, I don't even like that word. Just go to events, immerse yourself in what you love.
It's okay to be the one to reach out. You don't have to have this like do it on your own mentality until someone else reaches out to you. You're allowed to kind of be the I just blanked on what I was going to say. Be the person to start it, kind of get the conversation going. And so
for sure, don't be afraid to talk to people, and just do it in a genuine way, and people will be receptive. Also, just spend time learning and practicing trial and error on your own. Like, do things that make you afraid. Like, the first time I DJ'd, I think I kind of got thrown at the last minute onto a main stage at a festival. Long story, but I had only
what a first DJ set.
Yeah, and I had only really even touched the decks 3 times, and I was like, I'm gonna do it, and it went weirdly well. And I kind of discovered my love for DJing through that. So just don't be afraid to throw yourself into situations you're afraid of, and you're also gonna make a fool of yourself in the beginning. It's just, you can't escape it. When I first joined bands, I would do weird stuff. I was awkward on stage, so I'd fold my arm and kind of sing and I learned just through just these certain things you can only learn through real life experience and fucking up and doing the wrong thing and embarrassing yourself a little bit. And then even if you embarrass yourself, no one cares. Everybody forgets the next day. It's no one's thinking about you.
I was just talking to someone, and I asked the same question. I was like, if someone's trying to start a music career, what do they do? And they were like, the first thing you should always do is make a mistake. Mess up. Don't be perfect. Make mistakes early on in your career, because that'll help you grow and kind of have a better career.
You really do learn so much. Yeah. Every mistake I've ever made, I'm like, I'm never going to do that again. And it's like something that I would have never thought of unless, I made that mistake. So mistakes are good.
Mm-hmm. And so, was there ever kind of a moment that like made you second guess music, or like made you think about taking a break or like stepping away from music?
Yeah, I had a weird time during quarantine.
Yeah.
I was like, what the am I doing? I turned 30 during quarantine, so I had like my 30-year crisis. Like, I was like,
New year, new crisis. Let's go.
Yeah, I was like, new crisis. Every 5 years, I guess I have a crisis. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I basically, just because all the shows were canceled, and I just was no longer living in the city. I was like quarantining at my mom's house, kind of in the middle of nowhere. I just was second guessing everything. It's like, what am I doing? And I completely forgot about all the momentum that I had just begun to gain right before, because I just got taken away.
Mm.
But luckily, I got through it, and I still pushed myself to work on music throughout quarantine. And now that things are back, like, it's just nice to actually go to shows or play shows and remember why I started doing this in the first place.
Yeah. So during that time, during quarantine, was there kind of someone, maybe it was just your own self-motivation, but was there someone else, maybe your mom or someone else, that kind of helped get you out of that slump and got you back into making music?
Yeah, my stepdad is a really talented musician, and he has a really sick studio at his house. So I was quarantining with them, and we just kind of became like music buddies. Like, I wrote some songs for his blues album, and I did backups on like all of his tracks.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. It was nice to have someone to share that with. It would have been really weird if not. And I also got this really great studio to use. I recorded a sample pack while I was there that I still need to put out. But I like spent all the time recording it, and I now have this like product I'm gonna get to use. So yeah, it was awesome. He shared his studio with me, and we jammed out. It was great.
Yeah, and so a lot of artists now are kind of using TikTok, Instagram, whatever social medias, whatever internet resources they can to get music out there. Like, you even brought up Craigslist, just like, hey, I'm an artist, like, does anyone want to work? Like, here's my music. What do you think are like kind of the pros and cons to having that as something available to everyone?
So you mean just kind of like putting yourself out there on the internet and collaborating with people
I guess
that
so,
way?
yeah. Or like, is there anything, like, I've had people tell me that they think that like TikTok kind of makes people are now looking kind of for the virality of songs rather than like a genuine, like, authentic message, or like it's so different when now that someone can even just like on a computer, even an iPhone, can make a song and upload it to all these platforms, and that kind of just oversaturates the market. Anything like that, good or bad? Like, have you seen anything like that in this more like digital world?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think it's a bit intimidating, but I think it's actually really, really useful, and there are ways to utilize it. And at this time, people have way more access to just being able to reach a broader audience than they ever have because of the internet. So as much as it stresses me out, and like I don't really want to play the TikTok game necessarily, I've kind of found ways to just have fun with it. Like, my TikTok is just self-deprecating, like, music jokes, kind of. But it's musically related, and people are finding me through it, and they're aware that I'm a musician. So I'm kind of just, like, having my own fun with it. I'm still being myself. And I think that's, as long as you can, like, remain genuine and use social media, I think it's great.
Going back to what you said about like being authentic, just being yourself, kind of.
Yeah, Totally. Do things that make you happy. If you need a break, take a break, and don't get down on yourself if you just start putting music out and the numbers aren't running up. Because it does take time. I'm still working on my own pages and everything, and my own stuff. Like I've been really lucky to kind of come out with collaborations with bigger artists, like off top. So that was nice. I got a lot of plays on my music right away when I started doing electronic music. But I mean, there were still years and years before that, grinding it in a band from the ground up, and we had to do all the shit. We had to make little videos and record our shows, and just try to get creative with letting people knowing what we're doing. But the fact that we even have the opportunity to do that, versus back in the day when you would have to get on the radio to have anybody even give about you at all. I just think I think it's like tough to learn and get it down, but it can be so useful. And if you just keep at it, you will find people. Even if you're just finding like super fans, like a handful of people on the internet supporting you is so much more powerful than you think. Just like I have like maybe 10 of those, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but those are people that are supporting me like in pretty much everything I do, and it's really cool. So I hope to keep expanding on that.
And it's like it's made it easier, almost. I don't want to say easier, but like it's made it more accessible now that like people have the opportunity to just like put their stuff out, and people who relate to that or like that can find them, rather than in the past it was such an industrialized thing. It was like you basically, the way to get discovered was on the radio or playing shows, and the way to do either of those, you had to be like signed to one of the like big labels. And so but now we're seeing this huge rise in like independent artists who are finding like popularity from social media and from these platforms. And so
it's actually really cool, and I love that. Like I haven't figured out the TikTok algorithm. I don't think anyone really has yet, but I just love that anybody can go viral for anything at any time. It's pretty cool.
I don't think there really is a way to figure out the algorithm, because I think it's such a fluid thing that even the moment that someone, if they figure it out, probably by like the next morning it'll like subtly change somehow, and it won't be the exact same. And so
seems that way for sure.
And so when you're kind of in the studio like making a new song, what does that creative process kind of look like? Where do you kind of like start a new song from?
Well, if I'm writing top line for somebody, which is what I spend more than half my time doing, I made a little tutorial about it on TikTok, actually. I'll pretty much just load up the track, and I'll turn on my mic, and I try to not even listen to it, really. Like, sometimes I have to hear it before when they send it to me and we agree on doing it. But other than that, I try not to listen to it until I have it, my microphone on, in the DAW, headphones on, and I'll like run the whole track as a loop, and I'll let it play through, and I'll sing whatever, like I'll just basically sing gibberish, whatever melodies come to my head in gibberish form. Sometimes there are words in there. It's weird. And I'll kind of do it until I find like a cool just melody, and looking for a word, like your syllables and stuff fitting in correctly. So I'll go back and I'll listen, and I'll open like a Word document on my phone, make the font bigger, center it, like so I can see what I'm writing, and I'll kind of try to make out words out of the gibberish, or like phrases that I think would fit with what I was saying in the gibberish. So that's how I get started, and then from there, kind of, it's crazy because I'll pull an idea just that way, because I'll, through like the flow state of just running the track and singing things that come to your mind, like these keywords will keep popping up, and you're like, okay, this song clearly was making me feel this topic, so I'll kind of just break it down line by line from there, and just try to make it fit and get a little poetic with it, I guess. I like poetry too, so it's it took me a while to get that progress down. I used to really overthink lyrics because I've written poetry forever, so I would really try to get clever with my words. Now just feeling it's like using both of those, like 50% of each, like lyrics, but also just feeling has really helped me. I'm still I'm attending Icon right now for music production, so I'm still trying all these new ways. Every time I start producing, it's different, and I'm kind of still figuring out what my way is. So I'll let you know soon.
Okay, sounds good. And so, like, when you're kind of just giving these melodies based off of feel, based off of emotion, do you find that when you have, or if you have, like, stronger emotions for a song, then that usually ends up being a more authentic or, like, genuine song?
Yes.
Something like that, yeah.
And, it's doing session vocals, like, because I do that on the side just as a source of income too. Sometimes if I'm doing a session vocal, I'll just love the instrumental, and something amazing will come out, and then I'll be like, "Hey, sure you don't want to feature me on that or whatever?" But typically, when I do a session vocal, it's something I'm just getting paid for the vocals. I don't want my name on it. It's very like transactional, and it's not typically things that I vibe with or that are my favorite. So I have to like kind of channel and become like a different person, and like even though it might not be my favorite vibe, I still understand what the vibe is, and I can kind of like imagine what someone who loves that music would want. But it's definitely, I have to detach. Like, so when I'm writing something with like a producer like Conrink or somebody that I just met, or Jenga or Noya, like those people, like Max Prototype, that I just meshed really, really well with creatively, it is so much more like fulfilling and fun. It doesn't feel like a job. It feels like pretty much all of those lyrics are something that I'm going through or have actually gone through or have real feelings about. So it's definitely cool to be able to express myself in that way, and also just had to really train myself to detach on the other side of things.
And when you have those songs, like kind of talking about your own experiences, things you were going through, does that help your mental state at all, or like help what you are going through, like make you have a better outlook on it, help you get through whatever that is?
Yeah, it's a total outlet. People say that, and music can also be really stressful. Like, it's not always an outlet for me. Sometimes I'm like, I have to get this project done. I can't think of anything good. I'm overthinking it, and then I'll sleep on it for a couple of days and come back, and then the thing will happen. So it doesn't just happen every single time, but when it does, it's awesome, and it is like super therapeutic. And then I can go back and listen to these songs about my experience in this life, and it's been kind of crazy, and it's great to have that outlet to kind of talk about that stuff and get it out like a completely different way that I don't think words ever convey. It's like
and
so, it's just different.
Now that you've kind of had more experience, had more time, like playing live shows, like I'm on a stage with a DJ set, what kind of gives you a hint of like, oh, this might be a good song to play at a festival, oh, this might be more of like a listen on your own time kind of song? Like, what do you have any process to like pick out which songs you might add to a set list for a festival?
I really just go through and try to think what I would like to hear, and I think I have impeccable taste. So I'm like trying to just figure out what I want to hear, and obviously trying to present that in an organized way, not just hitting the play button. Oh, next, I like this song. I like this song. But and I do like to pull from different genres. Like, I love trap. I love Troy the most. But I also love like experimental bass and dubstep. So just kind of like weaving that into a curated experience rather than just playing songs that I know people like. In no specific order. I think that's what it's all about. It's like expressing yourself. That's kind of why I say I play what I want to hear, because it's me.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to like literally connect with other humans through that, because they're feeling it too, and you're like having this back and forth energy, and it's just awesome.
Have you, like, whether it's like playing a song, because if you play a song, whether it's authentic or just you like it, and like someone in the crowd or someone else also likes it, you already immediately have like some sort of connection there with that person. Have you had any kind of like authentic connection or a great like conversation with a fan or anything about your music?
I'd say probably my favorite moments so far have been when people are singing the lyrics to songs in the crowd.
Yeah.
That just gets me every time. Like, because even before I was a singer, like I said a couple times, I like love to write poetry and stuff, and it's just really cool to see that my melody and words are like someone knows that in their brain. It's kind of weird way to say it, but
that like other people have felt strongly enough about to memorize and to recite back to you as you were playing it.
Yeah, and especially on kind of my more vulnerable songs too, like just to kind of know that somebody was feeling that is just very, very cool. And also just insanely cool to see strangers that you've never seen or met before, like that know about your work. It just feels great.
Yeah, sure. It's like everyone kind of like one of the go-to phrases almost for like people going through things is like, know that you're not alone, which is true, but then it's kind of hard to just like imagine that or picture that. But when you're at an event or a concert or something and you hear other people sing those same words, like that, it's like a real experience that can show you like, wow, I'm actually not alone. Like all these other people are going through that same thing or have had those same feelings.
Yeah, it's really cool. And like I said too, like even if it's just a few people that know the words, that is just incredible to me, and I don't think I'll ever get over it. It's like more people could start, knowing my songs, and that would be great. But even if like they didn't, I feel like I could die happy right now with the amounts that of just people I've been able to connect with through music. So yeah, it's super cool.
So is that just kind of like your goal in music, kind of making music that people can relate to, that people find like their own experiences in?
Yeah, absolutely. As much as I care about making beats, like I'm also, I really care about the lyrical content and what I'm saying and like what messages I'm conveying and putting out.
Yeah.
And I want them to be inspirational, helpful. I want to contribute. As much as I love like dark stuff too, I really do. I grew up on like the super gangster rap, and I love all that stuff. It's like I listen to more of that than anything else. But just for me personally, I really only just want to put out like light, like positivity and light, as cliche as that probably sounds.
And you're putting that out, but like because you have such a love for this darker kind of other genre of music, would you ever find yourself like? Could you ever picture yourself producing for those kinds of artists or like helping others make that kind of music?
Yeah, I would love to do that. But the Charmae project, I want it to be this very inspirational, spiritual like thing. But yes, I love all that other stuff. I used to make beats for rappers when I lived in Portland for a couple of years, and like film music videos for them and stuff. And it would get it would get risque, I guess. And I loved it. I think that stuff is so fun, and it's a vibe, and it also brings people together too. So nothing against it whatsoever. Just for my personal project, just want to keep it separate, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So, Charmae being your personal project, do you see that as something you'll kind of continue with for the rest of your career, or do you see yourself branching out into other projects, other types of music?
I think that I think I'm gonna at least really have a go at this for the next few years, see where it goes. I could see myself when I'm older, just getting way back into jazz, because I was in like a jazz quartet at one point, and I just love it. So when I'm like an old lady, I'm just gonna still be the jazz singer, like the old people venue or whatever.
Yeah.
But definitely for the foreseeable future, I'm gonna continue with this and see where it goes, because things are happening all the time, and it's really cool. And when I feel like giving up, I'll get just some subtle reminder or some new great person to collaborate with that I've always wanted to work with, or like some sign of success that kind of keeps me going. So
Yeah.
as long as that continues, I'm gonna at least. I mean, maybe even if it didn't continue, I would continue down the Charmae path for sure.
Mm-hmm. And so, do you, in these new songs, with your melodies, do you listen to other singers or like try to get inspiration for what kinds of melodies you like to use, or is it more like trying to keep your own sound and like, yeah, I guess, do you use inspiration from other artists, or are you trying to keep it a unique like new sound?
When I started as a recording artist, it was like the first 2 or 3 years I was so frustrated because I basically just learned how to sing by imitating other singers. Like my whole life, just singing other people's
Yeah.
songs. And I remember I would like sit in the studio and kind of be like, "Oh, who am I going to be today?" I hated that because I just didn't know what I sounded like. It was really weird. It actually took like 2 or 3 years, and I started doing vocals on this website called Fiverr in the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
And through that, yeah, I ended up being like the top vocal seller on there. But it was all this different kinds of music constantly. Yeah, it was a lot. I was doing so much work on Fiverr for the first like 2 years I even did music.
Mm-hmm.
It was just for genre, you never knew what you were going to get. So I was constantly just channeling different artists that I felt like would vibe with that. And like one day, I don't know when this happened, but I just was like, okay, I'm gonna sing and just sing in my own like talking voice. Like, let's just try that. And through that, I just was like, oh, this is what I sound like. And then, like, if you hear any of that old Fiverr stuff I do, I sound like almost like a completely different person or multiple people.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, now I feel like I'm definitely just singing like how I talk. It's like just me, how I enunciate words, everything. Like,
And yeah, you were saying like sing as just like how you talk, and it reminded me just like recently, probably a little more than a week ago, I was listening to an interview with the Chainsmokers, who are clearly like a giant name in the like dance electronic music kind of scene, and they were saying for like the song "Closer," which is like obviously one of their biggest songs, like he wanted to do some of the vocals. I forget which one it was, but one of them wanted to do some of the vocals, but like just didn't think he could sing. And one of his producing friends was like, "Come here," and he was like, don't try to sing. Just say the words into the mic." And he just like spoke the words, and then through like autotune or whatever vocal editing they used, that was just how they made the song. And so
cool.
I feel like when it's something that comes easier to you, whether it is just talking or like your own style of singing, I feel like that almost makes it easier for you to make music than trying to I don't want to say imitate someone else, but like when you have inspiration from someone and when you sound like another artist, that almost like especially if you recognize you sound like another artist, I feel like that's you almost have like hesitation when you're singing those words.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's okay to pull a little bit of inspiration for sure.
Definitely.
But as long as it feels like like you said, when you hear it back, you're gonna feel weird about it. And I felt like that all the time in the beginning. But, I mean, now the way that I find that I use kind of inspiration is I have like a handful of top female singers that I just love and super inspired by. So sometimes if I'm feeling a little stuck and be like, oh, what would so and so do? And I'll kind of think in that term, like in those terms, a little bit. But that's about the extent of it. I'll kind of draw just like a little bit of inspiration rather than trying to sound like don't know, Banks or Billie Eilish or something, which is really pretty. And if you're, a lot of vocalists are good at imitating too. That's why we're good vocalists. So it's easy to do, especially when you're finding your sound, because you don't know what that is yet at the beginning. But it will happen. I was like seriously so frustrated about it for 2 years. I remember complaining about it all the time. And something just clicked, and things do just click. You just have to really put in the work.
You just have to keep going at it, and eventually, and like, don't get discouraged. Just kind of keep going, keep doing your thing, and eventually you'll start to get the hang of it. Things will start to click. You'll learn, do this, don't do this, like all that kind of stuff, and slowly it builds up into a good like sound for each song.
Yeah, it's like practicing or learning anything new, and but with music, for me, it feels especially good when things start to click, and when you realize, oh, they do actually start to click. It's really overwhelming at first. It's so much, and I don't think that ever ends. But when you start to just feel that things are registering, and your brain changes a little bit. It's like another language or something. Yeah. It's very cool.
And so, if you kind of got like a magical opportunity, like you got to pick any artist in the world to make a song with, who would that be? Do you think?
Any artist in the world or electronic music artist?
Either one. We'll do electronic music for now.
Okay, I'm gonna say Troy Boy. He's just the best. He's probably my biggest inspiration as far as like my production goes, for sure. And the songs that he does have with female vocals, like they always kill it. And he's made he made a song with Justin Bieber too. Like he's getting more into like the pop side of stuff.
Yeah.
So definitely.
I've heard some of his original things, but even like I've heard some of the remixes that he makes, and even that I'll like listen to. I'll either listen to or like be a fan of the original song, and then I'll listen to his remix, and I'm like, these sound like almost two completely different songs, and like it's really just cool that he can keep the same bass, the same song, but in a remix kind of add make it sound totally different, or like add his own kind of style to it.
Yeah, like the My Boy Billie Eilish remix is a really good one. There's so many of them, but he's just great. He's so good.
So whether it is like an actual like venue or arena, or more like a certain festival that you'd like to play, is there kind of a dream venue almost, or a dream like festival stage that you'd want to play?
Yeah, there were certain venues. I lived in New York City for 4 years before I moved to Nashville now. And I remember like Avant Gardner was a huge one. Brooklyn Mirage. Those are big ones on my bucket list. Webster Hall. I actually already got to perform there when I was like a brand new person. I sang with E-Prom
wow. That's
years
awesome.
ago. Yeah, it was really random and weird, and I didn't belong there at all, but it happened. So, but again, I think Webster Hall is still on that list. And as far as festivals, Shambhala would probably be number one. And also just Wakan, because I just love everything Wakan does. I love those guys. They're great. But Shambhala is probably my favorite festival ever. It's so good.
And I'm sure you like make some sort of connection with everything that you put your name on, all the songs that you make. But is there one song that kind of stands out as like your favorite that you've made, or anything like that?
That's really hard to say. I don't know if there's one. I really like These Walls with Conrank, because that was kind of the first time I put out like a full song with verses and a hook and a bridge.
Yeah.
Like for electronic music. So I love that one. And then Run Cried the Calling with Max, who is now my fiance. I love that one because we made that before we even dated. So it's also just a really good song. And then I really like working with Noya too. I'm just going on and on. I'm like going to list all my songs. But working with Noya is just great. And I love that shadow side song, because that was just like really personal. Like those lyrics were really personal.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one I'll say is I have a song with New Strut. His name is New Strut. It came out on Electric Hawk, and it's like a disco tune, and it's just it was so fun to work on that,
Mm-hmm.
and I love playing it in my car on sunny days. I'm like, yeah, I'm listening to myself. So
Yeah.
what? But those are probably my like top 4.
And so you kind of mentioned it there, Max. You made this song with, and then now he's first of all you're engaged, so congratulations on that.
Thanks.
But
thank you.
that whole like journey with him, what has that kind of meant to you, and like I guess what is it like to kind of be a partner with someone who like is interested in the same thing, who also does music production, and like you guys can just like kind of like make these projects together, or like have fun making music together.
Yeah, it's great. I can't imagine being with anybody else, and especially like I had dated people in the past that were into music, and that's like the more time I spend with myself, I'm like, wow, that is all I can talk about. Like, it would suck to date me and not be like have any clue what I'm talking about all the time. So, we just have so much in common, but our ears kind of work differently. Like, he's so deep in production and sound design, and I've been so deep in like the vocal side of things. It's like even when we have like a very similar taste in music too, which is really great and important to me. But we'll like hear different parts of the song or appreciate different things about these songs, but we like the same song. So that's pretty cool, and I just respect him a lot. You know, I look up to his production skills because I'm learning right now, and it's really cool to have somebody to bounce ideas off or ask questions of if I'm stuck on something. It's really nice. So, and he's just very supportive. I think we're both very just equally supportive of each other, and I think sometimes if two musicians are kind of trying to do the same thing, it can get weird with like jealousy, and just don't have that problem. So
but
it's really
there has
nice.
to be like some sort of balance, because I mean, thankfully it doesn't seem like there's much jealousy there. But like, also you kind of mentioned it, if you're with someone who's, whether it's music or anything else, if you're with someone who's not interested in the same thing as you, like it can be hard for them to relate to what you're saying, or like to kind of have conversation with what you're interested in or what you do. And so
totally, and I think it absolutely 100% can work and does work for people all the time. Like, you just because you're a musician, you don't have to be with a musician. But but it's, for me, it's just, for us, it's just been really, really nice. Like, we play the same festivals sometimes, and that's really fun. We get to perform together. It's just like another way that we get to be involved in each other's lives, and it's really cool.
All right, well, those are all the questions I had for you today. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a great conversation, I think. And where can people find you online, your music, Instagram, anything you have? Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty much Charmae Music on everything. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook. So it's just Charmae, CHARMAE, and music. I'm on all those. And I'm on Spotify too, as just Charmae. I think I'm the only one.
All right, well, I'll leave a link to some of that down below. Thank you once again for coming on. And good luck with any upcoming projects you have and with your relationship.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was great talking to you.